रिकॉर्डिंग। चलो।
हेलो गाइस। आज हम सुबह सुबह पढ़ रहे हैं द गिफ्ट बाय व्लादिमीर नाबोकोव। इसको हम कुछ टाइम से पढ़ रहे हैं। हाँ,
सुबह सुबह नहीं है, ये 12 o'clock है, नून है।
अच्छा ठीक है, नून में पढ़ रहे हैं द गिफ्ट बाय व्लादिमीर नाबोकोव। और ये हम कुछ टाइम से पढ़ रहे हैं। आई थिंक 8-10 बार तो पढ़ लिया हमने ये। तो वी आर ऑलमोस्ट एट द एंड, बट इट डजेंट मैटर अगर आपने पहले वाली स्ट्रीम्स नहीं देखी हैं या आपने पहले ये बुक नहीं पढ़ी है, बिकॉज द पॉइंट इज नॉट कि पूरी बुक साथ में पढ़नी है। द पॉइंट इज जस्ट रीडिंग अ सेक्शन एंड ट्राइंग टू एंजॉय इट। और वैसे भी ये बुक ज़्यादा प्लॉटी तो है नहीं, तो ऐसा तो नहीं है कि इसमें कोई प्लॉट पॉइंट मिस हो जाएगा तो मज़ा नहीं आएगा। दिस इज मोर लाइक मोमेंट्स वाली बुक है ये ज़्यादा। ठीक है, तो आई विल गिव यू कंटेक्स्ट कि अब तक क्या हुआ है, ताकि हम जो भी मोमेंट अभी है वो एंजॉय कर पाएँ। तो अभी हम चैप्टर 5 पढ़ेंगे। उसके पहले मतलब दिस इज़ द लास्ट चैप्टर ऑफ द बुक। तो हमारा प्रोटैगनिस्ट है बुक का, उसका नाम है फ्योडोर। ही इज़ रशियन बंदा जो कि बर्लिन में रह रहा है 1920s में, और वो एक राइटर है। तो उसने पहले एक पोइट्री की बुक लिखी जो ज़्यादा लोगों ने खरीदी नहीं, और ऐसे ही मतलब थोड़ी गुमनाम सी हो गई वो। फिर उसके बाद वो एक जगह रह रहा था रेंट पे। श्योजोलेव करके लोग, मतलब एक जगह रेंट पे रहता था। लैंडलॉर्ड की बेटी थी एक जीना करके, उससे उसको प्यार हो गया। थोड़ा टाइम उसकी वो लव स्टोरी चली, मतलब अभी भी चल रही है। और उसमें एक इंटरेस्टिंग एक्चुअली, अभी जो हम पढ़ने वाले हैं सेक्शन, उससे पहले वाले सेक्शन में थोड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग ये बात हुई है कि जो लैंडलॉर्ड था, मतलब लैंडलॉर्ड पति पत्नी और बेटी थी जीना। तो जीना से उसको प्यार था, तो जीना और वो छुप छुप के मिलते थे। मतलब ऑफ कोर्स उन्होंने नहीं बता रखा था लैंडलॉर्ड को कि हमारा चक्कर चल रहा है। तो लैंडलॉर्ड जो है उसको कहीं और जॉब मिल गई है, आई थिंक प्राग में या कहीं मिल गई है उसको, कोपेनहेगन में, सॉरी, उसको कोई जॉब मिल गई है। तो वो और उसकी बीवी कोपेनहेगन जाने वाले हैं, और जीना अकेली रहेगी कुछ टाइम के लिए यहाँ पे। तो जीना एंड फ्योडोर आर लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड, यस एग्जैक्टली। ओहो, तो वो अभी गए नहीं है, मतलब जाने वाले हैं जस्ट। ठीक है, ये जीना वाली लव स्टोरी उसकी चल रही है अभी भी। फिर उसने एक और बुक लिखी जो कि उसने बायोग्राफी लिखी है किसी और रशियन ऑथर की। और वो जो बुक थी वो बहुत कंट्रोवर्सी में आ गई। मतलब उसको लास्ट हमने स्ट्रीम में उसके रिव्यूज पढ़े थे कि लोगों ने उसको रिव्यूज दिए थे, अच्छे भी दिए थे बुरे भी दिए थे। बट ठीक है, मतलब दैट इज डन। तो अब ये लास्ट चैप्टर में, मतलब मैंने ये पढ़ना शुरू कर दिया था, हम इसका एक सेक्शन पढ़ेंगे। इसमें ज़्यादा कुछ कर नहीं रहा है वो, मतलब वो बेसिकली लेक पे आया है और चिल मार रहा है मोस्टली। तो और वो बेसिकली वहाँ थोड़ा जंगल सा भी है लेक के पास। तो वहाँ पे उसने अपने कपड़े वपड़े उतार दिए और फिर वो ट्रंक्स में जाके लेक में स्विम करने लग गया। और हम सेक्शन पढ़ते हैं, फिर पढ़े। तो स्विम करके एक साइड पे आ गया था लेक की, अब उसको वापस घर जाना है। तो he was too lazy to swim back to the other side. He followed leisurely the trail that skirted the lake along its northern edge. At the spot where a wide sandy declivity reached the water, with the uncovered roots of apprehensive pines supporting the sliding bank, there were some more people. The lake पे in general और लोग भी हैं. And down below on a strip of grass lay three naked corpses, white, pink, and brown, like a triple sample of the sun's action. तो ये इन जनरल लेटे हुए लोगों को कॉर्पसेस बोलता है। मतलब मैं भी पहले कंफ्यूज हो गई थी, ये सच में कॉर्प्स है क्या, बट वो ऐसे ही बोलता है। Farther on, along the bend of the lake, there was a marshy stretch, and the dark, almost black soil of the path stuck refreshingly to his bare heels. He went upwards again over a needle scattered slope and walked through the speckled forest towards his lair, जहाँ पे ये पहले लेटा हुआ था, जहाँ इसने अपने कपड़े रखे थे। All was cheerful, sad, sunny, shady. He did not feel like returning home, but it was time. For a moment he lay down by an old tree that had seemed to have beckoned to him. Show you something interesting. A little song sounded among the trees, and presently there came into view, walking at a brisk pace, 5 nuns, round faced, wearing black dresses and white coifs, and the little song, half schoolgirlish, half angelic, hovered about them the whole time, while first one and then another bent down on the move to pluck a modest flower, and then straightened up very nimbly, simultaneously drawing level with the others, taking up the rhythm and adding this ghost flower to a ghostly nosegay with an idyllic gesture, the thumb and the index touching for an instant, the other fingers delicately curved. And it all looked so much like a staged scene, and how much skill there was in everything. What an infinity of grace and art. What a director lurked behind the pines. How well everything was calculated. Their walking slightly out of order and then leveling out again, three in front and two behind. And the fact that one of the girls behind giggled briefly because suddenly one of those in front had, with a touch of expansiveness, almost splashed her hands over a particularly heavenly note, and the way the song dwindled as it receded, while a shoulder continued to stoop and fingers sought a stalk of grass, but the latter, merely swaying, remained to gleam in the sun. Where had this happened before? What had straightened up and started to sway? And now they all departed through the trees on quick feet in buttoned shoes, and some half naked little boy, pretending to seek a ball in the grass, rudely and automatically repeated a snatch of their song. How it had been mounted, how much labor had gone into this light, swift scene, into this deft traverse, what muscles there were beneath that heavy looking black cloth, which would be exchanged after the intermission for gossamer ballet skirts. ठीक है.
हम्म,
आई मतलब ये मैंने पढ़ रखा है ये वाला सेक्शन पहले, तो ये फिर से अपना मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा इमेजरी वाली राइटिंग इसने शुरू कर दिया है, अभी जस्ट स्टार्ट ही हुई है आई थिंक. Okay. A cloud blocked the sun, the light in the forest drifted and gradually faded. Fyodor walked to the clearing where he had left his clothes. In the hole beneath a bush, which always sheltered them so obligingly, he now found only a single sneaker. His rug, his shirt, and his trousers had vanished. There is a story to the effect that a passenger who inadvertently dropped his glove out of a train window promptly threw out its mate so that at least the person who found them should have a pair. In this case, the thief had acted the other way. The old, badly worn sneakers were probably no good to him, but in order to make fun of his victim, he had separated the pair. Furthermore, a scrap of newspaper had been left in the sneaker with a penciled inscription, Vielen Dank. तो जर्मन में इसका मतलब होता है थैंक यू वेरी मच.
ओह,
उसके कपड़े हो गए चोरी और showing off little bit of German knowledge. Fyodor wandered all around, finding no one and nothing. The shirt was frayed and he did not mind losing it, but he was somewhat grieved about the plaid lap robe, जो rug था उसके पास, brought all the way from Russia, and the good flannel pants quite recently bought. Together with the trousers had gone 20 marks, obtained 2 days before for at least partial payment of his room. Also gone were a small pencil, a handkerchief, and a bunch of keys. The latter somehow was worst of all. If nobody happened to be at home, which might easily be the case, it would be impossible to get into the apartment. Yeah. The edge of a cloud dazzlingly caught fire, and the sun slipped out. It emitted such hot, blissful strength that, forgetting his vexation, Fyodor lay down on the moss and began to watch the next snowy colossus draw near, eating up the blue as it advanced. The sun slid into it smoothly, its rim of funeral fire quivering and splitting as it glided through the white cumulus, and then, finding a way out, It first threw out three rays and then expanded, filling the eyes with spotted fire, blackballing them, so that no matter where you looked, domino patterns glided past. And as the light got stronger or died away, all the shadows in the forest breathed and did push ups. Yeah, I think this is again one of the examples of why we like this book. इस
हम्म,
टाइप की डिस्क्रिप्शन शेयर करता है आई थिंक माय मेरा वन ऑफ द दिस विल गो इनटू वन ऑफ द फेवरेट पैराग्राफ्स और मुझे इन जनरल क्लाउड्स बनाने पसंद भी है तो
हम्म,
जैसे इसने स्ट्राइप किया तो बहुत ही बढ़िया है A small incidental relief was supplied by the fact that thanks to the Shiojulev उसका लैंडलॉर्ड का नाम है थैंक्स टू
हम्म,
द Shiojulevs going away the following day to Denmark तो अगले दिन ही वो लोग जाने वाले हैं there would be an extra set of keys which meant he could keep quiet about the loss of his bunch. Going away, going away, going away, he imagined what he had constantly been imagining during the past 2 months the beginning, tomorrow night, of his full life with Zina. The release, the slaking, and meanwhile a sun charged cloud filled up, growing with swollen turquoise veins, with a fiery itch in its thunder root, rose in all its turgid, unwieldy magnificence, and embraced him, the sky and the forest. And to resolve this tension seemed a monstrous joy incapable of being borne by man. A ripple of wind ran over his chest. His excitement slowly subsided. The air grew dark and sultry. It was necessary to hurry home. Once more he searched under the bushes, then shrugged his shoulders, pulled the elastic belt of his trunks tighter, and set out on his way back. थिंक ये वाला मैं एक और बार पढ़ना चाहूंगी क्लाउड वाला मतलब
हम्म, हम्म,
ही हैज वो ये बताना चाह रहा है कि बारिश होने वाली है बट हाउ ही गेट्स टू दैट इमेज फ्रॉम द नॉर्मल इमेज आई वांट टू डू दैट अगेन
हम्म,
and meanwhile a sun charged cloud filled up growing with swollen turquoise veins with a fiery itch in its thunder root rose in all its turgid unwieldy magnificence and embraced him the sky and the forest, and to resolve this tension seemed a monstrous joy, incapable of being borne by man. A ripple of wind ran over his chest. His excitement slowly subsided. The air grew dark and sultry. It was necessary to hurry home. सही है
ये
काफी
बीच में टर्कोइस बोल के एक वर्ड है,
हम्म
स्पेलिंग क्या है उसका?
टर्कोइस टर्कोइस इज वो जो लाइट ब्लू सा कलर होता है TURQUOISE जो थोड़ा सा लाइट ब्लूइश कलर होता है ना
हम्म,
ठीक है ये वाली लाइन मुझे एग्जैक्टली समझ नहीं आई कि एंड टू रिजॉल्व दिस टेंशन
हम्म,
seemed a monstrous joy incapable of being borne by man ग्रामर ही समझ नहीं आई मुझे उसकी एंड टू रिजॉल्व दिस टेंशन seemed a monstrous joy इस टेंशन को रिजॉल्व करना एक मॉन्स्ट्रस जॉय है तो अच्छा बारिश होना शायद वो जो टेंशन है स्काई में उसके बाद बारिश होती है ना
हम्म,
हम्म
सेंटेंस है तो वैसा नहीं लगा, द टेंशन इटसेल्फ इज जॉय टाइप लग रहा
एंड टू रिजॉल्व दिस टेंशन है To resolve this tension seemed a monstrous joy.
है।
पता नहीं मे बी बट अच्छा तो लिखा है ठीक है अब ये इसको कपड़े तो मिले नहीं तो ये अपने ट्रंक्स में जा रहा है when he
घर
left घर जा रहा है when he left the forest and
अभी
started
नहीं
to
गए हैं पेरेंट्स, नेक्स्ट डे जा रहे हैं।
हाँ नेक्स्ट डे जा रहे हैं अभी होंगे
हम्म,
when he left the forest and started to cross a street The tarry stickiness of the asphalt under his bare foot proved to be a pleasant novelty. It was also interesting to walk on the sidewalk. Dream lightness. An elderly passerby in a black felt hat stopped, looked back after him, and made a coarse remark. But immediately, by way of happy compensation, a blind man, sitting with a concertina against a stone wall, mumbled his small request for alms and squeezed out a polygon of music as if there was nothing out of the way. It was odd though. Surely he must have heard that I was barefoot. Two schoolboys shouted at the naked passerby as they rode past, clinging to the back of a tram. And then the sparrows returned to the turf between the rails, whence they had been frightened by the clattering yellow car. Drops of rain had begun to fall, and it was as if someone were applying a silver coin to different parts of his body. A young policeman detached himself from a newspaper stand and came over to him. कैसे लिखता है यार ये एकदम पोएम टाइप ही लिखता है बहुत ही मजा आ गया पढ़ के A young policeman detached himself from a newspaper stand. Did not बोल सकता था आ गया बस मेरे पास. Young policeman detached himself from a newspaper stand and came over to him. It's forbidden to walk about the city like that, he said, looking Fyodor in the navel. Everything's been stolen, explained Fyodor briefly. That mustn't happen, said the policeman. Yes, but it happened all the same, said Fyodor, nodding. Several people had already stopped by them and were following the dialogue with curiosity. Whether you have been robbed or not, you can't go about the streets naked, said the policeman, growing angry. Quite, but I have to get somehow to the taxi stand, see? You can't in that state. Unfortunately, I am unable to turn into smoke or grow a suit. And I'm telling you, you can't walk about like that, said the policeman. Unheard of shamelessness, commented someone's thick voice from the back. In that case, said Fyodor, it remains for you to fetch me a taxi while I stand here. Standing in the nude is also impossible, said the policeman. I'll take off my trunks and imitate a statue, suggested Fyodor. The policeman took out his notebook and so fiercely tore the pencil out of the pencil hole that he dropped it on the sidewalk. Some workman or other servilely picked it up. Name and address, said the policeman, boiling. Count Fyodor Godunov Cherdinetsev, said Fyodor. Stop being funny and tell me your name, roared the policeman. Another one came up with a higher rank and inquired what the matter was. My clothes were stolen in the forest, said Fyodor patiently, and suddenly felt that he was completely wet from the rain. One or two standers by had run beneath the shelter of an awning, and an old woman standing by his elbow put up her umbrella, nearly gouging his eye out. Who stole them? Asked the sergeant. I don't know, and what's more, I don't care, said Fyodor. Right now, I want to go home, and you are detaining me. The rain suddenly grew heavier and swept across the asphalt. The whole of its surface seemed to be covered with jumping little candles. The policeman, all matted and blanket, the policemen, all matted and blackened by the damp, probably considered the cloudburst to be an element in which bathing trunks were, if not appropriate, then at least permissible. The younger one again tried to obtain Fyodor's address, but his senior waved his hand, and the two of them, slightly quickening their sedate pace, retreated under the awning of a grocer's shop. The glistening Fyodor Konstantinovich ran through the noisy splashing of the rain, turned a corner, and shot into an automobile. I just want to say कि मतलब just ये वाली जो line है, the rain suddenly grew heavier and swept across the asphalt. तुम भी वही कहने वाले हो क्या?
एसफल्ट फर्स्ट लाइन ठीक है, वो
Second
सिल्वर कॉइन वैसा बोल रहे हो। मुझे ये अच्छा लगा, कैंडल्स जैसा है वो।
हाँ, एग्ज़ैक्टली मुझे भी मैं वही बोलने वाली थी। The rain
हम्म,
suddenly grew heavier and swept across the asphalt. The whole of its surface seemed to be covered with jumping little candles. वो एकदम से वो वाली इमेज आ जाती है ना माइंड में कि हाँ, ऐसे-ऐसे रेन होती है
हम्म,
टिप आई थिंक ऐसी मैंने दिस इज वन ऑफ मतलब दोज मैंने ऐसी ऑथर की किसी कभी नहीं पढ़ी मतलब ही ब्रिंग्स टू माइंड इतनी छोटी छोटी इमेजेस वो ब्रिंग टू माइंड करता है जो आप नोटिस भी नहीं करते।
हम्म।
हम्म ठीक है। अराइविंग होम एंड टेलिंग द ड्राइवर टू वेट he pressed the button which until 8 p.m. automatically opened the front door and hurled himself up the stairs. He was let in by Mariana Nikolavna, जो इसकी लैंडलॉर्ड की वाइफ है। The hall was full of people and things. Shiojolev, the landlord, in his shirt sleeves, two fellows struggling with a box, in which it seems was the radio, a comely milliner with a hat box, a coil of wire, a pile of linen from the laundry. ये सब पैकिंग वैकिंग कर रहे हैं मोस्टली। You are crazy, cried Mariana Nikolovna. For God's sake, pay the taxi, said Fyodor, wriggling his cold body through the people and things, and finally, over a barricade of trunks, he crashed his way through to his room. They had supper all together that evening, and later on were to come the Kassetkins, the Baltic Baron, another person or two, इनके random दोस्त, at table, Fyodor gave an embellished account of his misadventure, and Shyojolev laughed heartily, while Mariana Nikolavna wanted to know how much cash there had been in the pants. Zina only shrugged her shoulders and, with unusual frankness, urged Fyodor to help himself to the vodka, obviously fearing that he had caught a chill. Cha.
हम्म।
Well, our last evening, said Boris Ivanovich. एक तो ये पता नहीं श्योजोलेव को कभी कभी बोरिस इवानोविच बोलते हैं, मुझे उसका पूरा नाम अभी तक नहीं रियलाइज हुआ है, बस ये रियलाइज हो गया है कि उसको बोलते हैं ये लोग।
हम्म।
Well, our last evening, said Boris Ivanovich, having laughed to his heart's content. May you prosper, Signor. Someone told me the other day that you dashed off a pretty nasty paper on Petrashevsky. Very laudable. Listen, Mama, there's another bottle there. No point in taking it with us. Give it to the Kassetkins. So you're going to remain an orphan, he continued, starting on the Italian salad and devouring it with the utmost sloppiness. I don't think our Ziniyada Oskarovna will look after you too well. Princess? Yes, that's how it is, my dear chap. One twist of fate and the king is mate. I never thought that fortune would smile on me. Touch wood, touch wood. Why, only last winter I was wondering what to do. Tighten my belt or sell Mariana Nikolovna for scrap. Haha. You and I had a year and a half of cohabitation. If you'll excuse the expression, and tomorrow we part, probably forever. Man is fate's plaything. Happy today, happy tomorrow. ठीक है तो drunk है. When supper was over and Zina had gone down to let the guests in, Fyodor retreated noiselessly to his room, where everything was animated by rain and wind. Noiselessly to his room, where everything was animated by rain and wind. He half closed the casements of his window, but a moment later the night said no, and with a kind of wide eyed insistence, disdaining blows, entered again. I was so tickled to learn that Tanya has a little girl, and I am terribly glad for her and for you. The other day I wrote Tanya a long lyrical letter, but I अच्छा तान्या इसकी बहन है और ये किससे बात कर रहा है ये नहीं पता बट किसी से बात कर रहा है ऐसा लग रहा है. I was so tickled to learn that Tanya has a little girl, and I am terribly glad for her and for you. The other day, I wrote Tanya a long lyrical letter, but I have an uncomfortable feeling that I put the wrong address on it. Instead of I-22, I put some other number without thinking, just as I did once before. I don't know why this happens. अच्छा ये शायद इसकी मम्मी ने इसको चिट्ठी लिखी है पता नहीं मुझे ऐसा ही लग रहा है. I put
हम्म।
some other number without thinking, just as I did once before. I don't know why this happens. One writes an address heaps of times, automatically and correctly, and then all of a sudden, one hesitates. One looks at it consciously, and one sees you're not sure of it. It seems unfamiliar, very queer. You know, like taking a simple word, say ceiling, and seeing it as Sealing, ceiling, or
हम्म।
C dash ling, until it becomes completely strange and feral. something like ice dashling or inglice. I think that someday that will happen to the whole of life. In any case, wish Tanya from me everything gay, green, and Lashino summary. Tomorrow my landlord and landlady are going away. अच्छा ये यही लिखा है. Tomorrow my landlord and landlady are going away and I am beside myself with joy. Beside myself. A very pleasant situation, like on a rooftop at night. I'll stay at Agamemnon Strasse another month and then move. आई डोंट नो हाउ थिंग्स विल वर्क आउट। तो इसको ये बोला गया कि तुम और जीना यहाँ पे अकेले 1 महीने के लिए रह सकते हो। 1 महीने बाद दे हैव फाउंड सम अदर कपल, सम अदर फैमिली टू रेंट द होल हाउस टू।
अच्छा।
I'll stay at Agamemnon Strasse another month and then move. I don't know how things will work out. By the way, my Chernyshevsky जिसने एक और बुक लिखी थी ऑटोबायोग्राफी वाली, by the way, my Chernyshevsky is selling rather well. Who exactly was it told you that Bunin praised it? They already seem ancient history to me now, my exertions over the book, and all those little storms of thought, those cares of the pen. And now I am completely empty, clean, and ready to receive new lodgers. You know, I am black as a gypsy from the Grunwald sun. Something is beginning to take shape. I think I'll write a classical novel with types, love, fate, conversations. ये भी कितना सही है, अपने आप को घर की तरह बोल दिया ना इसने। एंड नाउ आई एम कंप्लीटली एम्प्टी, क्लीन एंड रेडी टू रिसीव न्यू लॉजर्स। जैसे घर खाली हो रहा है वैसे ये भी खाली हो गया।
न्यू लॉजर्स वो क्या है?
लॉजर्स मतलब लॉज रेंटर्स।
अच्छा, लॉजर्स। ओके।
The door suddenly opened. Zena half entered and without letting go of the door handle threw something on his desk. Pay this to Mama, she said. She glanced at him through slitted eyes and disappeared. He unfolded the banknote, 200 marks. The amount seemed colossal, but a moment's calculation showed that it would only just suffice for the 2 past months. पहले की भी इसने rent नहीं दी है. 80 plus 80 and 35 for the coming one. From now on without board. But everything grew
ये वो
confused.
कितना खो गए वो पूछ रही थी ना, शी वाज मोर वांटिंग
Hmm.
टू मम्मी।
बट जो ये कह रहे हो ना तुम, जो इसकी बीवी थी वो सोच रही थी कितने पैसे खो गए क्योंकि पैसा तो
हम्म।
दिया ही नहीं है।
हम्म। हाँ।
But everything grew confused when he began to consider that for the past month, but everything grew confused when he began to consider that for the past month he had not been taking lunch, but on the other hand, had been receiving bigger suppers. Besides that, he had contributed during that time 10 or 15 marks, and on the other hand, he owed for telephone conversations and for one or two other trifles, such as today's taxi. The solution to the problem was beyond him. It bored him. He thrust the money beneath a dictionary. क्या इसने लेटर लिखना कंटिन्यू कर रहा है अभी, एंड विद डिस्क्रिप्शंस ऑफ नेचर। कहाँ था ये? अच्छा, आई थिंक आई विल राइट अ क्लासिकल नॉवल विद टाइप्स, लव, fate, conversations, and with descriptions of nature. I am very glad that you're reading my thing over again, but now it's time to forget it. It was only an exercise, a tryout, an essay before the school holidays. I have missed you a great deal, and perhaps I'll visit you in Paris. Generally speaking, I'd abandon tomorrow this country, oppressive as a headache, where everything is alien and repulsive to me, where a novel about incest or some trash, some cloyingly rhetorical, pseudo brutal tale about war is considered the crown of literature, where in fact there is no literature, and hasn't been for a long time. We're sticking out of the fog of a most monotonous democratic dampness. Also pseudo, you have the same old jackboot and helmet where our native enforced social intent in literature has been replaced by social opportunity, and so on and so on. I could go on much longer. And it is amusing that 50 years ago, every Russian thinker with a suitcase used to scribble exactly the same, an accusation so obvious as to have become even banal. Earlier, on the other hand, in the golden middle of the last century, goodness, what transports! Little Gemütlich जर्मनी, कोई तो जर्मन वर्ड है इसका क्या मतलब है पता नहीं। Ah, brick cottages. Ah, the kiddies go to school. Ah, the pleasant peasant doesn't beat his horse with a club. Never mind, he has his own German way of torturing it, in a cozy nook with red hot iron. Yes, I would have left long ago, but there are certain personal circumstances, not to mention my wonderful solitude in this country, the wonderful, beneficent contrast between my inner habitus and the terribly cold world around me. You know, in cold countries, houses are warmer than in the south, better insulated and heated. But even these personal circumstances are capable of taking such a turn that soon perhaps I leave the fitter land and bring them with me. And when will we return to Russia? What idiotic sentimentality, what a rapacious groan must our innocent hope convey to people in Russia. But our nostalgia is not historical, only human. How can one explain this to them? It's easier for me, of course, than for another to live outside Russia, because I know for certain that I shall return. First, because I took away the keys to her, and secondly, because no matter when, in 100, 200 years, I shall live there in my books, or at least in some researcher's footnote. There, now you have a historical hope, a literary historical one. I lust for immortality, even for its earthly shadow. Today I am writing you non stop nonsense, non stop trains of thought, because I am well and happy. And besides that, all this has something to do in a roundabout way with Tanya's baby. Hmm. Sure. ये वाली लाइन में समझने की कोशिश कर थी. What idiotic sentimentality, what a rapacious groan must our innocent hope convey to people in Russia. I think ये ऐसा कहना चाह रहा है कि ये सेंटिमेंटलिटी की रशिया वापस जाएंगे नॉस्टैल्जिया लोगों को
हुँ,
इडियोटिक लगता है.
हुँ,
But our nostalgia is not historical, only human. How can one explain this to them? ये वाला मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि
हुँ।
I lust for immortality even for its earthly shadow.
Earthly shadow मतलब
अर्थली शेडो मतलब आई थिंक वही कि इमोर्टैलिटी असली में तो नहीं अचीव की जा सकती बट
हुँ,
जैसे अगर अर्थ में तुमने बहुत बुक लिख दी और तुम बहुत फेमस आर्टिस्ट हो गए तो अर्थ के सेंस में अर्थ के टाइम के सेंस में तुम इमोर्टल हो गए.
हुँ, shadow of immortality. It's not actual immortality वैसा.
यस.
ओके.
और ये भी ये रशिया को भी बार बार घर की तरह और पर्सन की तरह एड्रेस करता है ना वो भी अच्छा लगता है बिकॉज आई नो it's easier for me to live outside Russia because I know for certain that I shall return. First,
हुँ,
because I took away the keys to her, and second, because no matter, I shall live there in my books. ठीक है. बीच में जो उसने जर्मनी के बारे में कुछ तो रैंडम रैंट किया है वो तो आधा समझा आधा नहीं समझा है बट आई एम नॉट वेरी इंटरेस्टेड टू अंडरस्टैंड इट
हुँ,
फुल्ली ऑल्सो. ठीक है. आगे ये बोलता है लेटर में ही द लिटरेरी रिव्यू यू आस्क अबाउट इज कॉल्ड द टावर. I don't have it, but I think you will find it in any Russian bookshop. Nothing came from Uncle Oleg. When did he send it? अच्छा इसके जो अंकल हैं वो इसको कभी कभी पैसे भेजते हैं.
हुँ,
I think you have mixed something up. Well, that's it. Keep well. Night. Rain quietly falling. It has found its nocturnal rhythm and can now go on for infinity. ठीक है. Letter is over. He heard the hall fill with departing voices, heard somebody's umbrella fall, and the elevator summoned by Zena rumble and come to a halt. All was still again. Fyodor went into the dining room, where Shojolev sat cracking the last nuts, chewing on one side, and Mariana Nikolavna was clearing the table. Her plump, dark pink face, the glossy wings of her nose, violet eyebrows, apricot hair turning to bristly blue on her fat shaven nape, her azure orb with its mascara fouled canthus, momentarily immersing its gaze in the dredgy. कहाँ पे थे? ये सुना था कि sat cracking the last Shoshilov sat cracking the last nuts, chewing on one side, and Mariana Nikolovna was clearing the table.
नहीं।
अच्छा, ये सुना था कि लेटर खत्म हो गया है and he heard the hall filled with departing voices.
नहीं, लेटर खत्म नहीं हुआ।
Oh, ये सुना था the literary review you ask about is called The Tower. I don't have it. Uncle Oleg वाला तो सुना था when did he send it?
हाँ, वो सुना है।
तो
कैसे
उसके
क्या?
बाद एक ही लाइन है वहीं से पढ़ लेते हैं फिर अंकल ओलेग वाली लाइन से.
हम्म।
Nothing came from Uncle Oleg. When did he send it? I think you have mixed something up. Well, that's it. Keep well. Night. Rain quietly falling. It has found its nocturnal rhythm and can now go on for infinity. तो लेटर खत्म हो गया. Now he heard the hall fill with departing voices. Heard somebody's umbrella fall and the elevator summoned by Zena rumble and come to a halt. All was still again. Fyodor went into the dining room where Shyozhelev sat cracking the last nuts, chewing on one side, and Mariana Nikolavna was clearing the table. Her plump, dark pink face, the glossy wings of her nose, violet eyebrows, apricot hair turning to bristly blue on her fat shaven nape, her azure orb with its mascara fouled canthus, momentarily immersing its gaze in the draggy ooze on the bottom of the teapot. Her rings, her garnet brooch, the flowery shawl on her shoulder, all this together constituted a crudely but richly daubed picture in a somewhat hackneyed genre. She put on her spectacles and took out a sheet with figures on it when Fyodor asked how much he owed her. At this, Shyozhelev raised his eyebrows in surprise. He had been sure that they would not get another penny from their lodger, and being essentially a kind man, he had advised his wife only yesterday not to press Fyodor, but to write him a week or two later from Copenhagen with a threat to approach his relatives. After settling up, Fyodor retained 3.5 marks out of the 200 and went off to bed. In the hall, in the hallway, he met Zena returning from below. Well, she said, holding her finger on the switch, a half interrogative, half urging interjection, which meant approximately, are you coming this way? I am putting out the light here, so hurry up. The dimple on her naked arm, pale silk clad legs in velvet slippers, lowered face, darkness. He went to bed and began to fall asleep to the whisper of the rain. As always, on the border between consciousness and sleep, all sorts of verbal rejects, sparkling and tinkling, broke in. The crystal crunching of that Christian night beneath a chrysolitic star, and his thought, listening for a moment, aspired to gather them and use them, and began to add of its own. Extinguished Yasnaya Pollyanna's light, and Pushkin dead, and Russia far. But since this was no good, the stipple of rhymes extended farther. A falling star, a cruising chrysolite, an aviator's avatar. His mind sank lower and lower, an aviator's avatar. His mind sank lower and lower into a hell of alligator alliterations, into infernal cooperatives of words. Through their nonsensical accumulation, a round button on the pillowcase prodded him in the cheek. He turned on his other side, and against a dark backdrop, naked people ran into the Grunwald lake, and a monogram of light resembling an infusorian glided diagonally to the highest corner of his subpalpebral field of vision. Behind a certain closed door in his brain, holding on to its handle but turning away from it, his mind commenced to discuss with somebody a complicated and important secret. Sure. This is interesting. Behind a closed behind a certain closed door in his brain, holding on to its handle but turning away from it, His mind commenced to discuss with somebody a complicated and important secret. But when the door opened for a minute, it turned out that they were talking about chairs, stables.
mm,
Suddenly, in the thickening mist, by reason's last toll gate, came the silver vibration of a telephone bell, and Fyodor rolled over prone, falling. falling. The vibration stayed in his fingers as if a nettle had stung him. In the hall, having already put back the receiver into its black box, stood Zina. She seemed frightened. That was for you, she said in a low voice. Your former landlady, Frau Stowboy, she wants you to come over immediately. There's something waiting for you at her place. Hurry. He pulled on a pair of flannel trousers and, gasping for breath, went along the street. अच्छा, बिफोर वी गो अहेड आई थिंक ये वाली चीज, मतलब जो ड्रीम में फॉल स्लीप में फॉल करने वाली चीज बहुत अच्छे से लिखी है आई थिंक इसने.
mm,
It turned his cheek वाली चीज भी, through their nonsensical accumulation, a round button on the pillowcase prodded him in the cheek. He turned on
mm,
his other. हम्म, ठीक है. um, ठीक है. He put on a pair of pants and, gasping for breath, went along the street. Uh, at this time of year in Berlin, there is something similar to the St. Petersburg white night. The air was transparently grey, and the houses swam past like a soapy mirage. Some night workers had wrecked the pavement at the corner, and one had to creep through narrow passages between planks, everyone being given at the entrance a small lamp, which at the exit was to be left on a hook, screwed into a post, or else simply on the sidewalk next to some empty milk bottles. Leaving his bottle as well, he ran Leaving his bottle as well, he ran farther through the lusterless streets, and the premonition of something incredible, of some impossible superhuman surprise, splashed his heart with a snowy mixture of happiness and horror. In the grey murk, blind children wearing dark spectacles came out of a school building in pairs and walked past him. They studied at night in economically dark schools which in the daytime housed seeing children. Sure. And the clergyman accompanying them resembled the Leshino village schoolmaster Baichkov. Leaning against a lamppost and hanging his tousled head, his scissor like legs in striped pantaloons splayed wide, and his hands stuffed in his pockets, a lean drunkard stood, as if just come from the pages of an old Russian satirical rag. There was still light in the Russian bookstore. They were serving books to the night taxicab drivers, and through the yellow opacity of the glass, he noticed the silhouette of Misha Berezovsky, who was handing out Petrie's Black Atlas to someone. Must be hard to work nights. Excitement lashed him again as soon as he reached his former haunts. He was out of breath from running, and the rolled up lap robe weighed heavy on his arm. He had to hurry, but he could not recall the layout of the streets, and the ashy night confused everything, changing as in a negative image the relationship between dark and light parts. And there was no one to ask. Everybody was asleep. Suddenly, a poplar loomed, and behind it, a tall church with a violet red window divided into harlequin rhombuses of colored light. Inside, a night service was in progress, and an old lady in mourning with cotton wool under the bridge of her spectacles hastened to mount the steps. He found his street, but at the end of it, a post with a gauntleted head on it indicated that one had to enter from the other end, where the post office was, since at this end a pile of flags had been prepared for tomorrow's festivities. But he was afraid of losing it in the course of a detour, and moreover, the post office that would come afterwards, if mother had not already been sent a telegram. अच्छा, समझ नहीं आया. आगे आ जाए शायद. Moreover, the post office that would come afterwards, if mother had not already been sent a telegram. He scrambled over boards, boxes, and a toy grenadier in curls, and caught sight of the familiar house. And there the workman had already stretched a red strip of carpet across the sidewalk from door to curb, as it used to be done in front of their house on the Neva embankment on ball nights. He ran up the stairs, and Frau Stowboy immediately let him in. Her cheeks glowed, and she wore a white hospital overall. She had formerly practiced medicine. Only don't get all worked up, she said. Go to your room and wait there. You must be prepared for anything. She added with a vibrant note in her voice and pushed him into the room which he had thought he would never in his life enter again. He grasped her by the elbow, losing control over himself, but she shook him off. Somebody has come to see you, said Stowboy. He's resting. Wait a couple of minutes. The door banged shut. The room was exactly as if he had been still living in it. The same swans and lilies on the wallpaper, the same painted ceiling wonderfully ornamented with Tibetan butterflies. Expectancy, awe, the frost of happiness, the surge of sobs merged into a single blinding agitation as he stood in the middle of the room, incapable of movement, listening and looking at the door. He knew who would enter in a moment and was amazed now that he had doubted this return. Doubt now seemed to him to be the obtuse obstinacy of one half witted. अच्छा ये मुझे मतलब आई एम नॉट प्लेइंग द पार्ट मैं वो नहीं कर रही मतलब सस्पेंस खराब नहीं कर रही मैं दिस इज समथिंग दैट वन वुड मतलब क्योंकि मैंने ये पार्ट नहीं पढ़ा है बट
तो
हम्म
मैं था वहाँ।
क्या
डिटेल्स कि डरना नहीं है, सब कुछ होता है, इस टाइप का कुछ बोलती
गो टू योर रूम एंड वेट देयर यू मस्ट बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर एनीथिंग
है।
she added with a vibrant note in her voice and pushed him into the room which he had thought he would never in his life enter again. He grasped her by the elbow, losing control over himself, but she shook him off. Somebody has come to see you, said Stowboy. He's resting. Wait a couple of minutes. The door banged shut. The room was exactly as if he had been still living in it. The same swans and lilies on the wallpaper, the same painted ceiling wonderfully ornamented with Tibetan butterflies. Expectancy, awe, the frost of happiness, the surge of sobs merged into a single blinding agitation as he stood in the middle of the room, incapable of movement, listening and looking at the door. He knew who would enter in a moment. तो मैं एक इंफॉर्मेशन देना चाहूँगी विच इज़ नॉट अ स्पॉइलर क्योंकि मैंने
हुँ,
भी ये पार्ट नहीं पढ़ा है बट इट इज़ समथिंग दैट वाज बुक के पहले था तो फर्स्ट सेकंड चैप्टर में ये बताया गया था कि इसके जो फादर थे वो एक मतलब वो बॉटनिस्ट थे तो वो इधर-उधर एक्सपेडिशंस पे जाते रहते थे और बटरफ्लाइज़ और ये सब उनको डिस्कवर करते रहते थे स्पीशीज़ वगैरह को। तो इन वन ऑफ सच एक्सपेडिशंस ही वेंट बट ही नेवर केम बैक एंड नाइदर वाज़ हिज बॉडी फाउंड एनीवेयर। तो
हुँ,
दे स्टिल डोंट नो वेदर ही इज़ डेड और ही इज़ जस्ट लॉस्ट समवेयर क्योंकि 1920s है तो इतना कुछ फ़ोन और
राइट,
कनेक्शन भी नहीं है। तो आई थिंक दैट इज़ व्हाट ही इज़ थिंकिंग इज़ गोइंग टू हैपन। व्हाट इज़ रियली गोइंग टू हैपन तो पता नहीं।
ओके,
He knew who would enter in a moment, and was amazed now that he had doubted this return. Doubt now seemed to him to be the obtuse obstinacy of one half witted, the distrust of a barbarian, the self satisfaction of an ignoramus. His heart was bursting like that of a man before execution, but at the same time, this execution was such a joy that life faded before it, and he was unable to understand the disgust he had been wont to experience when, in hastily constructed dreams, he had evoked what was now taking place in real life, and he was unable to understand the disgust he had been wont to experience when, in hastily constructed dreams, he had evoked what was now taking place in real life. Suddenly, the door shuddered. Another remote one had opened somewhere beyond it, and he heard a familiar tread, an indoor Morocco padded step. Noiselessly but with terrible force, the door flew open, and on the threshold stood his father. Oh wow, father भी वापस आ गए. Such a happy
हुँ,
ending. ठीक है. He
हुँ,
was wearing a gold embroidered skull cap and a black cheviot jacket with breast pockets for cigarette case and magnifying glass. His brown cheeks, with their two sharp furrows running down from both sides of his nose, were particularly smoothly shaven. Hoary hairs gleamed in his dark beard like salt. Warmly, shaggily, his eyes laughed out of a network of wrinkles. But Fyodor stood and was unable to take a step. His father said something, but so quietly that it was impossible to make anything out, although one somehow knew it to be connected with his return. Unharmed, whole, human, and real. And even so, it was terrible to come closer. So terrible that Fyodor felt he would die if the one who had entered should move towards him. Somewhere in the rear rooms sounded the warningly rapturous laughter of his mother, while his father made soft chuckling sounds, hardly parting his lips, as he used to do when taking a decision or seeking something on the page of a book. Then he spoke again, and this again meant that everything was all right and simple, that this was the true resurrection, that it could not be otherwise, and also that he was pleased with his captures, his return, his son's book about him. फादर पे भी एक बुक लिख रहा था पर इसने फिनिश नहीं करी थी. And then at last everything grew easy. A light broke through, and his father, with confident joy, spread out his arms. With a moan and a sob, Fyodor stepped towards him, and in the collective sensation of woolen jacket, big hands, and the tender prickle of trimmed mustaches, there swelled an ecstatically happy, living, enormous, paradisal warmth in which his icy heart melted and dissolved. At first, the superposition of a thingummy on a thingabob and the pale, palpitating stripe that went upwards were utterly incomprehensible, like words in a forgotten language or the parts of a dismantled engine. At first, the superposition of a thingummy on a thingbob and the pale, palpitating stripe that went upwards were utterly incomprehensible, of a dismantled engine, and this senseless tangle sent a shiver of panic running through him. I have woken up in the grave, on the moon, in the dungeon of dingy non being. But something in his brain turned. His thoughts settled and hastened to paint over the truth. And he realized that he was looking at the curtain of a half open window, at a table in front of the window. Such is the treaty with reason, the theatre of earthly habit, the livery of temporary substance. He lowered his head onto the pillow and tried to overtake a fugitive sense. He lowered his head onto the pillow and tried to overtake a fugitive sense, warm, wonderful, all explaining. But the new dream he dreamt was an uninspired compilation, stitched together out of remnants of daytime life and fitted to it. Oh no, father nahi aaya वापस. It was a dream.
हम्म,
Bad. ठीक है, आई थिंक हम यहाँ पे फिनिश कर सकते हैं बिकॉज अब आगे तो ऐसा कुछ होगा नहीं. आई थिंक आगे ऐसा ही कुछ हो रहा है कि वो लोग जा रहे हैं, उनकी कैब आ रही है, और फिर आई थिंक जीना के साथ थोड़ी देर ये चिल मारेगा, फिर ख़त्म हो जाएगा. ख़त्म ही होने वाला है. ओ एक्चुअली दिस एक्चुअली एंड्स इन 5 more, 1 2 3 4 5 6 more पेजेस. उसके बाद के जो पेजेस हैं वो हैं जो ये फादर के ऊपर जो बुक लिख रहा था उसका
अच्छा,
थोड़ा सा एक्सट्रैक्ट है.
ओह,
ठीक है, आई थिंक मतलब हम वो वाला पार्ट, आई वुड वांट टू लाइक, इफ दिस इज आवर लास्ट स्ट्रीम फॉर द बुक, आई वुड वांट टू लाइक रिपीट द ब्यूटीफुल पैराग्राफ्स दैट ही हैज रिटन. एक तो जो हमने
आई
क्लाउड्स
थिंक
वाला.
लास्ट वाला पार्ट के लिए एक और कर सकते हैं 5-6 पेजेस के लिए जो बचा है.
हाँ बट वुड समवन, अब हम अगर पूरी बुक तो नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं ना इसके अंदर, तो अगर कोई पढ़ना चाहेगा तो हम उसको सस्पेंस में छोड़ सकते हैं ना कि तुम्हें पढ़नी है तो तुम खुद पढ़ लो पूरी. पूरी हम पढ़ देंगे तो फिर लोग पढ़ेंगे नहीं ना खुद. व्हाट डू यू थिंक? ठीक है, चलो लेट्स डिस्कस कि लास्ट वाला पूरा पार्ट पढ़ना है कि नहीं पढ़ना. बट फॉर एंडिंग दिस वन, मैं तो वो फिर से 2 पैराग्राफ्स जो सुंदर वाले हैं वो मैं पढ़ना चाहूंगी, फिर से छोटे ही हैं. व्हाट डू यू थिंक? आवाज नहीं आ रही है तुम्हारी। हेलो। हेलो। कुछ मैसेज किया क्या तुमने मुझे? ओके। हाँ, ठीक है। तो
नेट आएगा शायद मेरा फिर से क्रैश होने से
अच्छा।
5 minutes।
अ, हाँ, ये वाला पैराग्राफ ऑफ माय फेवरेट्स।
हम्म
The edge of a cloud dazzlingly caught fire, and the sun slipped out. It emitted such hot, blissful strength that, forgetting his vexation, Fyodor lay down on the moss and began to watch the next snowy colossus draw near, eating up the blue as it advanced. The sun slid into it smoothly, its rim of funeral fire quivering and splitting as it glided through the white cumulus. And then, finding a way out, it first threw out three rays and then expanded, filling the eyes with spotted fire, blackballing them, so that no matter where you looked, domino patterns glided past. And as the light got stronger or died away, all the shadows in the forest breathed and did push ups. Yes. एक और ये भी मैं पढ़ना चाहूंगी जिसमें वो
हम्म
अपने ट्रंक्स में बस जा रहा होता है.
हम्म
When he left the forest and started to cross a street, the tarry stickiness of the asphalt under his bare foot proved to be a pleasant novelty. It was also interesting to walk on the sidewalk. Dream lightness. An elderly passerby in a black felt hat stopped, looked back after him, and made a coarse remark. But immediately, by way of happy compensation, a blind man sitting with a concertina against a stone wall mumbled his small request for alms and squeezed out a polygon of music as if there was nothing out of the way. Two schoolboys shouted at the naked passerby as they rode past, clinging to the back of a tram. And then the sparrows returned to the turf between the rails, whence they had been frightened by the clattering yellow car. Drops of rain had begun to fall, and it was as if someone were applying a silver coin to different parts of his body. A young policeman detached himself from a newspaper stand and came over to him.
हम्म
Nice. ये मेरे को बहुत अच्छा लगा, मतलब जो इसने बोला ना कि उसको जो ओल्ड मैन है वो उसको कुछ कोर्स सा रिमार्क देता है, बट
हम्म
इमीडिएटली ब्लाइंड मैन जो है वो उससे पैसे मांगता है एज इफ नथिंग इज रॉन्ग, क्योंकि ब्लाइंड
हम्म
मैन को एक मतलब इन जनरल जैसे पोएम्स वगैरह की जब मैं बुक पढ़ती हूँ, मतलब राइटिंग पोएट्री एंड मेकिंग इट बेटर की, तो उसमें भी ये होता है कि यू हैव टू लाइक यू हैव टू अपील टू मल्टीपल सेंसेस, कि जैसे
हम्म
तुम ब्रेथ मतलब साइट तो फर्स्ट सेंस हो ही गया, बट मतलब स्मेल या फिर टच, उन सब सेंसेस
हम्म
को भी अगर तुम एक तरीके से इवोक कर पाओगे तो पोएम विल बिकम मच फुलर. तो आई थिंक ये बहुत नेचुरली करता है ये चीज, कि जैसे टारी स्टिकीनेस ऑफ द एसफॉल्ट अंडर हिज बेयर फीट, तो वो बहुत सारी
हम्म
सेंस और स्मेल साइट सब कुछ एक साथ समन कर लेता है ये, तो
हम्म
एकदम ही erotic सा लगने लगता है. हम्म. ठीक है. तुम्हारा क्या था फेवरेट पार्ट? आज वाला जो सेक्शन था, आई थिंक इट वाज एक्चुअली वेरी नाइस, क्योंकि उसमें इमेजरी भी थी, उसमें ये सब पुलिसमैन वाला फनी इंसिडेंट भी था, ड्रीम वाला पार्ट भी अच्छा था कितना.
हम्म, मुझे
ड्रीम
तो
वाले पार्ट वो भाग रहा, सॉरी स्ट्रीट, जब डार्क स्ट्रीट में भाग रहा होता है वो भी कितना अच्छा डिस्क्रिप्शन था.
हम्म
हम्म.
मुझे रियल लाइफ का ही अच्छा लगा।
क्या है?
रियल लाइफ का ही अच्छा लगा मुझे, वो
अच्छा.
एक कैंडल्स वाला।
कैंडल
और
वाला.
पहले जीना को मिलने का सीन।
जीना को मिलने का अच्छा, जो पहले वाला हमने पढ़ा था, जब
हम्म
जिसमें वो डार्कनेस में खड़े होते हैं.
हम्म
हम्म. वो तो अच्छा था. आई थिंक मेरे को वो कैंडल वाला तो मुझे भी बहुत अच्छा लगा। आई डोंट थिंक वो दैट इज़ समथिंग दैट यू कैरी विद यू कि तुम अगली बार रेन देखोगे तो तुम्हें वो वर्ड्स आएँगे वापस, वो वाली चीज़ है
हुँ,
उसमें।
अच्छा।
ये बट जब वो डार्कनेस में भाग रहा होता है तो मतलब वो जैसे वो अच्छा लगा कि वो एकदम से तुम्हें फ़ील हो जाती है डार्कनेस जैसे और बहुत ही वो होता है जैसे डार्कनेस में भागना हैज़ अ मिस्टिकल मैजिकल क्वालिटी ना,
हुँ,
तो वो
हुँ,
ये
हुँ,
नहीं बोलता कि इट हैज़ अ मिस्टिकल वो ऑफ कोर्स डायरेक्टली तो कभी कोई चीज़ बोलता ही नहीं है। बट सम अगर कोई एमेच्योर ऑथर होता तो वो बोलता है इट हैड अ मिस्टिकल मैजिकल वो बना देता है मिस्टिकल मैजिकल क्वालिटी जैसे उसने बोला है कि ब्लाइंड चिल्ड्रन आ रहे थे स्कूल से बाहर और उस स्कूल में ज जब दिन में जो है नॉर्मल चिल्ड्रन पढ़ते हैं, रात में ब्लाइंड चिल्ड्रन पढ़ते हैं, तो इतना मैजिकल सी क्वालिटी लग रही थी उस चीज़ में, जबकि वो सिर्फ़ एक डिस ज बट उसने दैट इज़ व्हाट ही चोज़ टू डिस्क्राइब, दैट इज़ व्हाट ही चोज़ टू शो। और जैसे ये वाली लाइन भी मेरे को बहुत अच्छी लगी कि "ही हैड टू हरी बट ही कुड नॉट रिकॉल द लेआउट ऑफ द स्ट्रीट्स एंड द एशी नाइट कन्फ्यूज़्ड एवरीथिंग,
हुँ,
चेंजिंग एज़ इन अ नेगेटिव इमेज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन डार्क एंड लाइट पार्ट्स जैसे फ़िल्म नेगेटिव्स के साथ मैं काम कर रही थी ना रिसेंटली तो उसमें
हुँ,
वही जो डार्क होता है वो लाइट होता है एक्चुअली और जो लाइट होता है वो डार्क होता है।
हुँ, हुँ,
ये भी इसलिए अच्छा लगा।
जी,
बट ड्रीम वाला ये तो मुझे बहुत ही अच्छा लगा कि जब वो फॉलिंग इन स्लीप वाला जो पूरा डिस्क्राइब करता है,
हुँ,
डिस्कनेक्टेड थॉट्स और फिर रैंडम इमेजेस और मतलब तकिए पे करवट बदलना। आई थिंक आई विल कम बैक टू इट अगर मुझे कभी ऐसा कुछ लिखना पड़ा जिसमें कोई इंसान
हुँ,
स्लीप में जा रहा है।
हुँ,
ठीक है, तो ये हम डिस्कस कर लेंगे कि लास्ट वाला पार्ट हमें करना है कि नहीं करना या फिर हमारे व्यूअर्स को थोड़े से सस्पेंस में छोड़ना है ताकि वो लोग खुद जाके ये बुक पढ़ें। बट
ऐसे
हाँ,
छोड़ देते हैं,
क्या?
छोड़ देते हैं।
ठीक है। तो मीनिंग्स कोई देखने हैं आज?
हुँ,
हुँ, नोज़गे देखना है मुझे, नोज़गे क्या होता है?
नोज़ NOSC
हाँ, नोज़गे विदाउट स्पेस
के
क्या है?
एक मिनट
अच्छा, अ स्मॉल बंच ऑफ फ्लावर्स इमेजेस दिखाना एक बार। स्टक हो गए हो तुम शायद फिर से।
हेलो,
हुँ,
NOSK
नोज़गे ओह! बुके टाइप का छोटा-सा गॉट इट। ये वो उसमें बोलता है जब वो नन्स जा रही होती हैं, तो फिर वो बोलता है ना कि वो नीचे बेंड डाउन करती है टू प्लक अ फ्लावर, एडिंग दिस घोस्ट फ्लावर टू अ घोस्टली नोज़गे विद एन आइडियलिक जेस्चर।
हुँ, हुँ,
ठीक है, और मेरे को देखना था डेक्लिविटी, DECLIVITY
DECLIVITY
डेक्लिविटी।
डाउनवर्ड स्लोप
अच्छा, तो ये तो स्टार्टिंग में था जब वो लेक से जा रहा होता है।
हुँ,
At the spot where a wide sandy declivity reached the water. जो स्लोप ही हो गया वो। ठीक है।
हुँ,
और क्या है? गेम्यूटलिश तो जर्मन वर्ड हो गया। GEMUTLISH।
एस SH या CH
हाँ, CH।
कोज़ी
कोजी अच्छा। लिटिल गेम्यूटलिश जर्मनी। ओह!
हुँ,
ठीक है। और फिर रैपेशियस
हाँ,
RAPACIOUS PA।
aggressively greedy और grasping। वो
अच्छा
सीन में
तो
ना, रेंट का सीन जो ये देने जाता है उस सीन में आता है।
ये उसमें है जब वो बोलता है कि जब वो रशियन नॉस्टैल्जिया की बात करता है, एंड व्हेन विल वी रिटर्न टू रशिया, व्हाट इडियोटिक सेंटिमेंटालिटी, व्हाट अ rapacious groan must our innocent hope convey to people in Russia। अच्छा, उनको लगेगा कि हम ग्रीडी और ग्रास्पिंग ग्रोन कर रहे हैं, और जबकि
हम्म,
हमारी वो इनोसेंट होप है। ओके, ठीक है। और तो कुछ नहीं है आई थिंक। फ्यूजिटिव, फ्यूजिटिव तो वो होता है जो कि
वही,
छुप के आता है।
क्रिमिनल
criminal।
टाइप, एस्केप, पर्सन हु हैज in captivity, yes.
He lowered his head onto the pillow and tried to overtake a fugitive sense. Tried to overtake a fugitive sense. Warm, wonderful, all explaining. But the new dream he dreamt was an uninspired compilation. He lowered his head onto the pillow and tried to overtake a fugitive sense.
वही, he wanted to hide in that
He
fugitive sense.
wanted to hide and go back to the dream.
हम्म,
Fugitive sense क्या है?
fugitive sense वही है ना, hide।
He tried to overtake something which is fugitive. He lowered his head onto the pillow
हम्म,
and tried to overtake a fugitive sense। मतलब वो लोअर करना करके छुप, मतलब उस ड्रीम में वापस जाना चाहता है, और ऐसा
हम्म,
करके he is trying to overtake a fugitive sense। मतलब ऐसा लग रहा है कि his sense of reality जो उसको दिख रही है सामने टेबल और चेयर, that is
हम्म,
the fugitive sense।
हम्म,
बट ऐसा क्यों है ये नहीं पता। वो क्यों फ्यूजिटिव सेंस है जो रियलिटी है। पता नहीं।
ये
ओ,
देखो,
हम्म।
Google is making some fugitive meaning. People also search for Lalit Modi, Nirav Modi, T है, सुष्मिता सेन क्यों है?
ओह माय गॉड, ये क्या है? ये तो कुछ अलग ही कर रहा है गूगल।
हम्म,
स्मिता सेन ने क्या कर दिया भाई?
वही तो।
हम्म, ठीक
शायद
है।
उसकी सीरीज आया है ना, आर्या बोल के, उसमें कुछ है जैसा।
अच्छा। ओ, यस, हो सकता है बेचारी। हाँ, वो भी मुझे देखना था। यस, ये रह गया था, हैकनीड।
या
हैकनीड
मुझे भी देखना था,
भी
आई
देखना
हैव
है।
इट।
अच्छा, हैविंग बीन ओवर यूज्ड।
We used unoriginal and trite।
ओके ओके। ये वो जब उसको एक्सप्लेन कर रहा होता है, जब अपनी लैंडलेडी को देख के एक्सप्लेन कर रहा होता है कि उसकी रिंग, उसके बाल, उसका ये वो, ऑल दिस टुगेदर कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड अ क्रूडली बट रिचली डाउड पिक्चर इन अ समवट हैकनीड जॉनर। वो वैसी दिखती होगी ना, क्लीशे टाइप की, जैसे सारे लोग दिखते हैं, कि वो अपने बर्तन से साफ कर रही है और उसके बाल ऐसे लग रहे हैं और उसने वो मस्कारा लगा रखा है, तो उसको देख के ऐसा लग रहा होगा कोई हैकनीड पिक्चर देख रहे हैं। स्टक हो गए क्या तुम? मेरा तो हो गए वर्ड्स सारे। आई एम डन, इवन इफ यू आर स्टक, एंड आई थिंक यू आर स्टक। यू आर स्टक। कुछ कुछ आवाज तो आ रही है, घोस्टली, घास्टली आवाजें आ रही हैं।
क्या बता रहे
आई थिंक लास्ट वर्ड देख लिया था हमने, वो ट्राइट वाला, हैकनीड।
हम्म, yes.
ये वो तब बोलता है जब उसका लैंडलेडी को डिस्क्राइब कर रहा होता है कि
हम्म,
उसका ये, उसका ब्रूच, उसकी फ्लावरी शॉल, all this together constituted a crudely but richly dowed picture in a somewhat hackneyed genre.
हम्म, मुझे
ठीक है।
देखना है।
हम्म।
मॉस।
मॉस देखना है तुमको?
हाँ, मुझे नहीं पता है। आई नो इट्स बेसिक एंड ऑल।
बाहर निकलो घर से ना, थोड़ा जंगल में, पार्क में जाके खेले नहीं बचपन में?
खेले है, पर उसको क्या बोलते हैं पता नहीं ना। बट ग्रास, ब्रॉड टर्म ग्रास यूज कर लेते
मॉस को हिंदी में काई बोलते हैं, हिंदी में तो। तेलुगु में नहीं बोलते कुछ।
हैं। काई।
काई बोलते हैं, यस। पिक्चर देखो तब समझ आएगा, इमेजेस देखो।
ग्रास और मॉस में डिफरेंस क्या है?
वही
अच्छा,
मैं कह रही
मॉस
हूँ।
वही था वो जो उस दिन प्लांट को
हाँ,
लगा।
जो हम लगा रहे थे, यस यस वही है। तब भी तुमने बोला था इसको क्या बोलते हैं। इमेजेस
हाँ,
देखो एक बार, इमेजेस देखोगे तो पता चल जाएगा एग्जैक्टली। ये पेड़ में जो ट्रंक पे लग जाता है, जब भी कुछ गीला गीला होता है तो हल्का हल्का सा आ जाता है ना वो काई। इवन उसमें भी आ जाती है काई, तो अगर तुम खाने की या पानी की कोई चीज ज्यादा देर लग दोगे तो ग्रीन ग्रीन जो आ जाता है।
algae.
हाँ,
I think of it
एल
as algae.
algae and moss are, I think, closely related. Algae versus moss. Is algae and moss the same thing?
Is it?
Uh, मतलब सेम डिवीजन में एग्जिस्ट कर रहे हैं, बट आई थिंक थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस है।
हाँ, algae is aquatic. Moss is,
टेरेस्ट्रियल।
yeah, ठीक
ठीक
है।
है।
मुझे और देखना था। ये भी बेसिक है। नेप। आई थिंक इट इज बैक ऑफ नेक ऐसा कुछ है।
यस, यू आर राइट।
ओके। फिर सल्ट्री।
सल्ट्री, आई थिंक वो होता है सल्ट्री तो सॉल्टी, हॉट एंड।
अच्छा, जब ज्यादा देर बीच के पास बैठते हैं तब सल्ट्री फील वाटर
यस
बॉडी के।
यस।
टर्कोइज तुमने बोल दिया है।
देख लो कलर, मतलब देखोगे तो पता चल जाए। इमेज, हाँ
तो
ये आ गई।
ओके। ग्रीनिश। ओके। हम्म ठीक है, हो गया। फिर वी आर डन विद द गिफ्ट।
Oh no, we're done with the gift.
बट
Bye.
ये वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट व्हाट?
अच्छा, आइदर एक्ट्स ऑफ गॉड, और मैंने स्टोनर करके एक और बुक मंगाई है, उसका भी काफी अच्छा इंटरेस्टिंग प्रेमाइस था। तो
एक्ट्स ऑफ
दोनों,
गॉड बाय कनन गिल एंड स्टोनर बाय
स्टोनर बाय मिलर,
मिलर।
जॉन विलियम्स।
जॉन मिलर। ठीक है, डिसाइड करते हैं। ऑडियंस को, लिजनर्स को नेक्स्ट एपिसोड पता चलेगा।
ठीक है, कूल। बाय व्लादिमीर, इट वाज नाइस बीइंग विद यू।
लास्ट बुक है ना, और उसके लाइफ का भी
क्या है?
रेस्टिंग सीन। उसका लाइफ का भी लास्ट बुक है ना।
हाँ यस, एक्चुअली उसकी लाइफ की लास्ट बुक है। हमने भी लास्ट ही बुक उठाई पढ़ने के लिए, बट वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। आई थिंक आई वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू डू कि सी की सारे रशियन ऑथर्स में क्या स्पेशलिटी है। जैसे नाबोकोव इज ऑफ कोर्स पोएटिक प्रोज हो गई उसकी स्पेशलिटी है, तो हमें समझ आ चुका है।
हम्म
ठीक है, मैं तो पढ़ ही लूंगी एंडिंग, आप सब लोग नहीं पढ़ पाओगे। आपको पढ़नी है तो बुक पढ़ो जाके फिर।
हम्म
ठीक है, ओके बाय।
आई एम एंडिंग द रिकॉर्डिंग।